A few years ago, I talked to someone who was thinking about buying a business. The numbers looked great. The owner said everything was running smoothly, and the asking price seemed fair. But when we started asking a few deeper questions, we realized the entire business depended on just one employee, and they were already planning to leave. So that's the kind of thing that can turn a good opportunity into a very expensive mistake. If you're thinking about buying a business, there are a few red flags you absolutely need to recognize before you move forward. In this episode, I want to walk you through a simple framework I use when looking at a business acquisition. And I'd like to talk about the green flags, the signs that businesses may be strong. Yellow flags, things that deserve deeper investigation. And of course, the red flags, warning signs that should slow you down and ask some more questions. And I'll share the one strategy I always use to really get to the reason a business is for sale. Because when you buy a business, you're not just buying revenue, you're buying everything. The systems, the culture, the employees, the reputation, and sometimes the problems. And we want to minimize those problems that don't show up until after the deal closes. Hi, I'm Matt. I've spent over 25 years building companies as a serial entrepreneur and helping small business owners navigate challenges and avoid costly mistakes. At Beyond BST, we talk about the real side of entrepreneurship, how to take ideas from concept to first dollar and beyond. Quick question before we dive in. If you had the opportunity tomorrow, would you rather start a business from scratch or buy an existing business that's already operating? Both paths have advantages and risks. Let me know down in the comments. I'm curious where people stand. One of the biggest misunderstandings about buying a business is that people think it eliminates the normal startup problems. But that's not really what happens. When you start a business from scratch, you build the problem slowly. You figure out the systems, you hire people, you discover weaknesses, but you also start at zero revenue. So when you buy a business, you inherit everything on day one. The good systems and the bad systems, the employees, both good and bad, the culture, the reputation in the market, and sometimes problems that the owner has been, managing quietly for years. But the revenue, hopefully that's already there. That's why when you evaluate a business acquisition, you're not just looking at the spreadsheets. You're looking for signals. And those signals also, usually show up as the green flags, the yellow flags, or the red flags. Now, green flags don't guarantee the business is perfect, but they are signals that the foundation may be strong and it's something you can build on. Green flag number one. One of the best signals you can get is when the owner understands the business financially. Really understands their business. They can clearly explain things like their revenue and their margins, expenses, seasonal patterns, maybe the customer mix. And they don't have to dig through paperwork to do it. They've been paying attention. You see, when an owner knows their numbers, it usually means the business has been actively managed, not just operated on autopilot or on a whim. Green flag number two. Healthy businesses usually don't depend on a single customer. If one client represents 40 or 50% of the revenue, that's kind of risky, because if that customer leaves, a large part of the business disappears overnight. So stronger businesses have distributed revenue across many customers. That doesn't eliminate the risk completely, but it helps spread it out. Green flag number three. Another strong signal is when the business has actual systems in place. You know what I'm saying? Documented processes, customer tracking, accounting discipline, maybe training procedures. When all those systems exist, it means the business can operate without everything depending on the owner personally. And that will make the transition much easier. Green flag number four. One of the most encouraging signals is when the seller genuinely wants the business to succeed after they're gone. That means they're willing to help with training and introductions and vendor relationships, maybe key customers. They understand that transition matters. That's usually a sign they're not just trying to exit quickly. Maybe something's wrong. They care about the future of the business. So that's some of the green flags. the signals that a business may have a solid foundation. But honestly, when you're evaluating an acquisition, most situations don't fall neatly into good or bad. They fall somewhere in between, and that's where the yellow flags show up. Yellow flags are not deal killers, but they're signals that you need to dig deeper before moving on. Yellow flag number 1. This is extremely common in small business. The owner handles everything: customers and operations and sales and scheduling and problem solving, and all that works fine while they're there. But if the entire business depends on just the owner, when that person is gone, the business may really struggle. So you have to ask yourself, is the business actually transferable, or are you just buying a job that only works for the current owner? Yellow flag number 2. Small business owners are not always great accountants. So messy books are really not unusual, but messy records make it harder to understand the true profitability and the operating costs, and whether the owner is hiding personal expenses inside the business. Before buying a business, you need to truly understand what the numbers actually mean, not just what they are. Yellow flag number 3. This happens a lot in local businesses. Employees are loyal to the person who built the company, not necessarily the company itself. They may even be family or relatives. When ownership changes, some employees decide it's time to move on. So you want to understand who really holds the relationships together inside the business. And the last one, yellow flag number 4. A business that has stopped growing isn't automatically a bad acquisition. Sometimes owners just lose energy. Sometimes they stop marketing. Sometimes they're just preparing to retire. When the revenue stalls or declines, you need to understand why, because the reason matters. Also, whether it can be reversed. So far, we've talked about green flags and we've talked about yellow flags. But there's the final category that experienced buyers learn to recognize pretty quickly: the red flags. These are the signals that should make you slow down, ask the harder questions, and maybe reconsider the deal entirely. Because some problems can be fixed, but some problems are just baked right into the business itself. Red flags are the signals that you should just slow down. They don't have to kill the deal, but they should make you ask a lot more questions. And maybe rethink whether the purchase price is still really that great of a deal. Red flag number 1. Sometimes owners say things like, I run some personal expenses through the business. And that might be true, but it also means the financial picture may not be entirely clear. If the numbers are difficult to verify, your risk increases. And if their purchases don't match with what is produced, there's something else going on there. You'll need to make a large decision based on information that may not be reliable. Red flag number 2. Sometimes a business appears stable, but when you look closely, you realize that one key employee handles the clients, runs the operations, and knows all the systems. And if that person were to leave, the entire structure could collapse. Now that's a serious dependency risk. Red flag number 3. If someone wants to sell the business very quickly, that makes my ears perk up. Sometimes there's legitimate reasons, but sometimes urgency exists because something's going on behind the scenes. A good rule of thumb is this: when someone wants to sell a business faster than you want to buy it, it's time to slow down. And then red flag number 4. When evaluating a business, you want to see patterns, stability and consistency, predictability. If revenue suddenly drops right before the sale, we need to understand why, what changed, and how to turn it all around. Because if that change continues after you take over, it may drain your resources right from the start. Let me give you a quick scenario. You're looking at buying a coin-op laundromat with a drop-off wash and fold business. The revenue looks good. The owner says the business is stable and gross sales every year are up 3 to 5%. The location's in a busy shopping plaza, and he's locked in the lease for the next 5 years at a reasonable rate. The equipment is still within its service life, but nearing 10 years old, and the price seems reasonable. He's willing to stick around for a week or so to ensure you are all set and good to go. But as you dig deeper, you discover a few things. One customer is a caterer that represents about 60% of the very profitable wash and fold revenue. The owner personally manages that relationship because it's an old high school buddy. The financial records are, well, let's just say not very organized, and the seller wants to close the deal very quickly. So here's the question. Should you walk away from this deal? Think about it for a second. I don't think the answer is automatic. But when several yellow flags start stacking together, and especially if a red flag pops up, my risk increases quickly. So smart buyers don't just look for opportunity, they look for the risk hiding behind the opportunity. And this leads to one of the most important strategies when evaluating a business acquisition. It's simple, but it can be revealing. It starts with this question. If this business is so good, why are you selling it? And then, and this is the important part, be quiet. Give the owner some time to answer. Don't rush them and move on, because sometimes a long, awkward silence is filled by the seller with information he may not have intended to share. And that information often tells you more than the financial statements ever will. Whatever it is, the answer doesn't have to necessarily be suspicious. I mean, people sell businesses for many reasons, and they're legitimate. Retirement and burnout, maybe a new opportunity or a lifestyle change. But how someone answers that question and how consistent the answer is with the financial story, that will tell you a lot. Sometimes even more than the spreadsheets do. Buying a business can be one of the fastest ways to become a business owner, but it can also be one of the fastest ways to inherit someone else's problems. The goal isn't to find the perfect business, because perfect businesses rarely go up for sale. The goal is to understand what you're actually buying, and the signals that help you do that often show up as simple things: the green flags, yellow flags, and red flags. So I'm curious, if you had the opportunity tomorrow, would you rather start a business from scratch or buy an existing one? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to discuss how you think about that decision. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, please like and give me a subscribe. Let me know in the comments too. I often look there for new topics. Now, take a breath. You've got this. All right, what's next?